I am going to hold your hand as I say this. I will hold your hand gently or maybe firmly as I tell you this. House hunting in London is difficult. That's just the one word I will use. I have been house hunting in London for almost 5 weeks now, and finding a decent, affordable place is I don't even know how to say it. I did my master's in Cape Town, and I thought finding a place to stay in Cape Town was hard, majorly because most of the places were expensive and I was on a scholarship, so I was trying to save money. But nothing prepared me for London. I've been to New York a few times, and I've always known that the cost of living in these big global cities is usually very high. But it's only until you start house hunting that reality hits you. Wait, what's happening? So in this video, I'm going to show you a few of the places I visited. Honestly, at some point when I was doing the house viewings, I got so discouraged. I even said, I'm not creating any more content. At this point, I just need a place to stay. I don't have the energy to create content, but I will show you some of the places that I saw and also give you tips and stuff I've learned about house hunting in London, so that if you ever come to London or the UK as a young person, you will be prepared and know what to look out for. This place was the first one I viewed. It was terrible. The cooker was rusting. The shower was fine. Even the toilet was fine, just for one person. But yeah, the storage was just too tiny. Look at that cupboard. That's all. Can you imagine? But because it was a sharing, I didn't like the kitchen, because why is there a toilet in the kitchen? And why is the storage room so untidy? Even though there's a washing machine, I felt like it was just too cluttered. Second place, I won't show the room because someone was still inside, so I don't want to invade on privacy. But this is the toilet which was outside the room. It's not a shared toilet, but it wasn't working. And then also, with this place, I have to pay for washing, and they told me it's £4 per cycle. Too expensive. This is what I had in mind when I was looking for a studio in London. This was one of the best and most decent places I saw. The storage was okay. It was great. See, there's a cupboard. There's some drawers there. See, that's really nice. I really liked the place. The entrance was also very secure. And then that's a bed. You can see that the mattress is big enough for one person, even two people, but one person is really big. The room was also very spacious. And then you see there's a table and a chair there, so that's good. Two chairs actually, so it's good if you're working from home or studying. Everything was working, all the electronics, the fridge, the washing machine, microwave, everything was just working perfectly. Even the water was hot. The heating was also great. It's a gas heating, so that's really good. I really liked this place. In fact, were it not for the budget, this would have just been the place that I would have signed up for. It was also very close to the station, 2 minutes walking, had all the shops in place. See, even the toilet is very decent. It's spacious enough for one person. There's a sink there, and there's even a shower, and the water was hot. I kept asking the agent if the water and heating was great. This one also had a spacious shower, toilet, and sink there. You can see it's spacious, good enough for one person. See, the room had a kitchenette, but I didn't like it because there's no place to cook. So even though the storage is great, there's a fridge, but how am I supposed to cook? And then the bed was also fine. You can see the mattress is good. This room was also big, and the storage was also okay. If you don't have many things, the storage was just fine. It was workable, and the room was also spacious. So yeah, I almost went for this one, but I remember that on my way here, I could smell some drugs on the road. Now there's a shared washing machine. I think they told me I'd be sharing with 2 other people. in the kitchen. This was also a favorite. See, there's a sink there and then a shower room. I just don't like the walls, the tiles, but it's okay. Yeah, that's a toilet there. At least it's separate from the bathroom. And this is the kitchen. You see, the kitchen is also good. There's a cooker there. There's a sink. There's a washing machine. I liked this place. I really liked it. See, a microwave. And the bed was also good. See, it's even white, so the lighting is good. And there's a sofa. The only problem with this one was that heater was small, but I was okay. Another favorite, because this wasn't a shared space, it was just like a servant's quarter outside the landlord's house. See, there's a washing machine, there's a cooker. As long as there's a cooker, I'm good to go. See, the bed is also good. This place had just been repainted, so I liked that. It was clean. Yeah, you could tell they had just worked on it. And the shower and the toilet were also fine for one person. So yeah, I liked this place. There was even an individual entrance for this place. I didn't take it because it would be too difficult to commute. I'd have to use the bus. This was good because the commuting would be fine. But it was so tiny but workable. Tiny but workable, yeah. And the rent was also not too bad. Although I wish they had included electricity, but at least everything is working. I checked everything. Workable for one person, no visitors, haha. There's a toilet and the shower is also good. And I was also told that the neighborhood is really great and safe. This property was interesting. I think I really liked the interior, and I checked, the room was actually warm. I was worried that the wood would not be warm, but it was actually warm. It was also very tiny. Look at that fridge though, very big fridge. The bed is fine. You can see, yep, just look at that. It's good for one person when you're on a shoestring budget and you don't want to share, to be honest. There's Wi-Fi. The TV is connected to Wi-Fi as well. The only thing I didn't like about this place was that there was no table, so I can't really work from home. I can't study, I can't do such things. The toilet and shower room was also small, but I was like, I'll just manage because it's just one person. Look at that toilet and look at the shower, you see. And it had just been refurbished, so it was also good. Those are things you need to look out for. I liked this place, but I just don't know why there was no table, but it was very tiny. And even the storage was small, but I was like, I'll just take it because it's fine. Same property, different room. Look at that. This one was bigger. See, there's a washing machine, there's a fridge. Look at that. Even the windows were good. This place had also just been refurbished over Christmas, they said. This one, the room was bigger. Look at the storage. See, the storage is good. Then there's also a bed. And you see that on the roof, I don't know if you've seen, but light can come in at least through the bedroom. Yeah, you can see. Shower room is also small but very decent. You see, it's just decent. The toilet, the sink, and then storage there. So this works well. There's even a mirror. There's a table there. I liked that there was a table. Okay, so those are some of the places that I got to view. I've viewed maybe even 20 properties. You just won't be able to see all of them because, like I mentioned, at some point I got discouraged and stopped filming and I was desperate and stressed. However, I'm going to share a couple of things I've learned so that one day when you're looking for a place to rent, accommodation as a young person in London, you might keep these things in mind. I have my notes here, but maybe I'll speak off the script at some point. So don't mind when I look down. Now, the first thing you need to look at is the rent or the budget. How much money are you willing to spend on rent? Because like I mentioned, rent here is very expensive. The first thing you need to remove from your mind is thinking about how, if you were renting this space back in your home country, you'd be living in a mansion. In Kenya, for us, you'd be living in a mansion maybe in Kitisuru or Runda or Muthaiga or Kilimani, Kileleshwa, wherever. Maybe you can even buy your own house. Do not think about those things. Remove that from your mind and just know this is the money I'm spending
in London. Once you remove that expectation from your mind, you will be a bit more settled. So ask yourself how much money you're willing to spend on rent and the budget. The other thing you also need to think about is whether you want to share, and if you want to share, what kind of sharing are you willing to, what kind of sharing are you okay with, and how far are you ready to go with the sharing. So here are some of the sharings that I have seen that are most common here in London, and this is also tied to the budget. So the first most common sharing is where people share a house. So maybe you find it's an apartment, a flat of like 5 people, and then you all share a common space like a toilet and a kitchen and the common areas like the living room. There are also spaces where I have seen that the bedroom is en suite, meaning that the bedroom has its own toilet, but then you still have to share the kitchen. So there are also those dynamics that you need to think of. For some people, they're like, I can never share the toilet. Others are like, I can never share the kitchen. Others are just, I don't want to share anything. But it all depends on your budget. And then some people are willing to share with 5 people, because the more people you share with, the lesser you're going to pay. So if you're going to live with one other person, then the cost will be higher, but maybe you're like, I can deal with sharing with one person. So it just depends. Think about that. The other sharing I have seen is where you share like a building. So you find there's this building and then it has little rooms inside. I don't want to call them studios, let me call them cribs. And then you find that the small rooms are self-contained, so there's maybe a space for you to cook a little food there. There's maybe a small fridge, some cupboard. It's very tiny, but you find you're sharing the same building. So you might even find it's really one of the bedrooms in like a big mansion. They advertise that as a studio, so just put that in mind. But in my mind, that is not a studio. For me, a studio is a whole flat on its own. But yeah, that's the kind of sharing you need to think of. And then you might find, okay, we are not sharing the kitchen or the toilet, but maybe you have to share the washing machine, cleaning facilities, stuff like that. So think about those. For me, I was willing to compromise on things like washing machine, corridors, and just have my own space. But like I said, those places are also very difficult to find. The other thing you need to consider is your earnings, or the amount of money you have if you're a student. So here, whenever you are going to rent, they're going to ask you maybe how much you earn or how much money you have in the bank. And if they feel that you're not earning up to the standard that they would think of, so like there's a place I went and they said you need to have 36 times the amount of rent that is advertised. So let's say like place X is advertised for £500, so multiply that by 36. Do you have that kind of money? And if you don't, do you have a guarantor? So do you have like a relative, a friend who's willing to say, here are my bank documents, in case this person does not pay the rent, then I'm willing to take up that fee. However, that is very difficult to find, because hey, everybody is finding a way of living, so who's going to be your guarantor? So that's something else you need to think of. Of course, will you be able to provide references? Because they also ask maybe for a letter from your school or a letter from your employer, just to know that you are the person who you say you are. They probably ask for your visa documents, your passport, just to make sure that you're in this country legally. So right now they will ask for a share code, which takes you to an online system, and the government online system will show whether you're in the UK legally. Previously, people have been presenting their biometric registration card. Was it BRP? Something like that. Yeah. And then how long do you want to sign a lease for? So for example, you find that most leases will be 1 year, and then you're tied to that house for 1 year. Should you want to move, you might incur some additional costs. Some places say you can rent for 1 year, but after 6 months, if you change your mind, just notify us 1 month in advance and you're not going to incur any costs. So those are things you need to think about. You need to think about how much you're paying as deposit. Sometimes you find the deposit is up to 5 weeks of rent, and sometimes the cost is very, very high. in addition to you paying the first month of rent before you move in. So think about that dynamic as well. Because you're in a very cold country, think about heating. How is this house being heated? So there are different ways of heating that I have seen. Either there's a central gas system. So you find, I don't know, maybe there's a gas or boiler somewhere. I don't know how it works. And then the whole building is heated. I have found that to be very effective. 2, you find that it's electric heating. So maybe there's a switch somewhere that you switch on and then the electricity just lights up the house or warms up the house one way or another. That apparently is expensive. I really don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but I think gas is more effective from what I've been told. And then you also need to ask yourself, where is the location of this apartment or this studio or this accommodation that I have chosen? What I have learned is that the farther you are from the train station, the cheaper it is going to be, because most people want to live along the train, preferably where they're taking only one train to wherever they're going. So whether it's school or to work or wherever, they just walk maybe 5 to 10 minutes, get on the train, go one way, they come out and go to wherever they wanted to. However, a lot of these spaces will be very, very expensive. So ask yourself, should you choose to use 2 trains so that you can have a bigger space or a more affordable place? How many more trains are you willing to do? Do you want to do 3 trains? Do you want to do 4 trains? However, I can tell you, too hectic. That's why most people just prefer to do 1 train. But if you can compromise, 2 is also fine, as long as you're changing trains in the same station. There are experiences I've had in New York where you find if you're going to another side of town, you have to come out of the station, then maybe walk 5 minutes and enter another station so that you can go to wherever you wanted to. However, you find that in some places in London, you do have to change a train, but you just get out of the train and then you change the platform and take another train. So that might not be so hectic compared to you leaving the station and having to enter another station for you to get another train. So think about that logistic. And then think about the security deposit. I already mentioned that. However, this is something you need to know, that these spaces are very competitive. So sometimes you find you've gone to a viewing, you thought you were the only person who's going to view, and then you find it's a group viewing. So they're like 10 other people and you're all competing for one space. So what the agent will tell you is that you need to pay a security deposit so that you can reserve this space, and then they can do the references check on you so that they can also take off the property from the market, from it being advertised to the public. And so you need to ask yourself, are you willing to pay a security deposit? I think this is something you would just have to think about. If the place is really good and it's something that you think you will take up, just pay the security deposit. However, if you really already know you're not going to take it up, don't pay the security deposit, because you'll keep incurring costs paying for security deposits everywhere for a place that you're never even going to take up. And then there are places where you might give a security deposit and they will refund you if the landlord rejects your offer. So there was a space where I had booked, I had liked it, I really liked it, and then I put in my security deposit. I was ready to go with it. And then unfortunately, I was told that the landlord rejected my offer. I don't know why. I didn't even want to ask because I felt bad about it. But the good thing is that they refunded my security deposit. Although that was a bit hectic because I'd already gone through the hassle of paying the security deposit. Now all of a sudden I have to wait for it to be refunded. And then, do you want to go outside of London or do you want to stay in London? Another thing I discovered is that when you leave London, there's London City, like London Central, and then Greater London, and then outside of London. When you go outside of London, Greater London, the houses will be cheaper, they will be bigger. If you're looking for a studio, you'll probably find it for a very good budget, all bills included, very good space. But the catch is you're very far away from London. So maybe you'll be commuting 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning. You have to get on a train, then get into London and get the underground station to your destination. So yes, you have your own space, it's really great. but you're really spending a lot of time and money commuting, because now the cost of the train will be more. So imagine if you're doing an everyday commute, that's going to be so hectic. And then the other thing is that if you're new in the country, you probably want to see a bit of the city, you want to see sights, you want to make friends, you want to have a social life, but then you're somewhere very far from London. So that means you're not going to be able to do things as easily as you would if you were in London. If you needed to have a cup of coffee with a friend after school, can you do this? Or do you have to be rushing for the train to go home? So those are things you need to think about. And then even as you think about going outside or inside, you need to ask yourself how far your space or your room, wherever you've rented, is to the train station, because there are places where I have checked, place is wonderful, it's something I would absolutely go for, but then you find the distance from the house to the train station is a place where you have to take a bus. Now there are lots of buses in London. The only challenge is because of traffic. Traveling on land, sometimes there's traffic, sometimes there's an incident on the road that you don't know of. Buses keep delaying. So sometimes you're at the bus stop, it says your bus will arrive in 2 minutes. However, when the 2 minutes are over, then it says it's now delayed for 10 minutes. And then sometimes the bus just never comes and you find yourself hopping onto another bus so that you can go to the nearest stop and walk a bit. So it's really a bit hectic when you have to get the bus, to be honest. So if you can avoid places where you have to take a bus to the train station, that would be great. That is just up to you to decide. It also depends on how reliable your area is. But from my experience, the buses are not necessarily reliable, or would not be as reliable as the underground trains, because the underground trains come every 2 to 6 minutes. So you find if you are rushing to the station and you missed this underground train, then another one will come in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. You see, 2 to 6 minutes is not a lot of time for you to get to wherever you are going. But if you have to wait for a bus up to 20-30 minutes, you're always going to be late to wherever you want to go to. And then you also need to be aware that sometimes landlords might have their preferences. So maybe 10 of you have put an offer and maybe they were looking for a certain profile and maybe you just don't meet it. Don't take it personally, just accept the rejection and move on. Also ask yourself, do you want to have a furnished or unfurnished place? So what I have seen from the market is that unfurnished spaces tend to be cheaper. In fact, at some point I was thinking maybe I should go for an unfurnished place, because you'll find everything will be great, the location, the distance will be good, the commute will be great, but then remember you're going into a house that has nothing. There's nothing. So you now have to start buying a bed and a stove and a what and you have to ask yourself, if I want to move to another space, if I want to relocate to another place, part of London or another part of UK, will I be able to move with these things? Now you're a young person, do you have the budget to start buying a washing machine that you might not use for 20 years? Maybe in the next 20 years you'll be in a big mansion that already has a washing machine. So think about those logistics. You might decide then to go for a partly furnished house. So if you're lucky, you might find a partly furnished house that has a washing machine, a microwave, and a cooker. So those, for me, I feel those are the most important things, especially if you already have somewhere to cook and a fridge. Those are most important. In fact, at some point I was like, a microwave is a luxury, a water kettle is a luxury. I'm not buying those things. I don't need those things. As long as I have a cooker, fine. But then you might find a partly furnished house that has all those things. They call them white goods here. If they have them, and then you say, okay, I will buy a cheap bed and maybe one table and a chair if you have the budget for that. And then you just decide that you're going to live in a house that has no furniture, but you're okay with the space. You can think about those logistics. Lastly, you can also go for a furnished house, of course, that will have everything, but the cost will be higher. So consider that when you're looking for a place to rent. And then here in London, I have never done house hunting in Kenya, so I do not know if this is the This is the standard. But here in London, when you're looking for a house, you have to physically go to the property, because hey, I have been to places where I saw one thing online, but when I got to the property, everything was just different. Or you find the property was great on the inside, but then you walk in the neighborhood and you're like, this place is a bit, I don't like the area. There's this property I saw that was good online, but when I went to the area, there were people smoking. I don't know what they were smoking, but they were inside the houses, so I couldn't I couldn't smell anything. But by the time I got into the viewing, I was feeling dizzy. I was so dizzy, and I was afraid. I was thinking, okay, if I live here, it means I'm going to be inhaling this smoke or whatever it is people are smoking, so that's not good for my health. So always better to do a physical viewing so that you know the area. You also get to know how far you will travel, the feel, what's the vibe as you travel to and from your location. After the viewing, make sure you also walk around the neighborhood. Just see how the buildings are, what's the vibe of the people, are there shops nearby where you can buy grocery and stuff like that, things you'll need in the house. Think about that before you actually sign up for a lease. And then as you view the house, these are things you need to look out for. For example, you need to find out how is the heating in that house. I already talked about the types of heating. How are the windows? They call them double glazed windows here. Double glazed windows are windows that will prevent wind from coming in, especially during winter. Try and check the windows if there are any gaps on the walls where heat might escape. Double glazed windows, good walls, those are very important things, especially because you're in a country that is often cold. So ask yourself those things. Look at how is the house sharing. Is it cleaned often? Like there are places I would go, I'm like, okay, I'll take this place, and then I ask how often is it cleaned, and then they say, oh, the cleaner comes once every 2 weeks. So that means you're still going to be doing a lot of the cleaning, and you'll always be getting frustrated if a space is not clean and you need to be in a relaxed space. Also, just look at the furniture. Is it old? Look at the carpet. If the house has a carpet, is it a clean carpet? Because some of the houses are very old, the ones that are affordable, you find that they're very old and maybe they have a carpet. So is the carpet clean? Is there moisture? Look at the walls. Are they painted? Is there mold on the wall? Is there light? Small things. And then even as you're looking at these spaces, ask yourself, what is it am I willing to give, and what is it that I cannot live without? Because if you're looking for a space on a shoestring budget, it's going to be so difficult to find a space that has everything that ticks all the boxes. So ask yourself, what is it that I can live without, and what is it that I can't? The other thing you need to be aware of when you're looking for a place to rent or accommodation in London is that London is divided into different zones. So there's zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think up to 6. So zone 1 is like central London, zone 2 is also central, zone 3 is further out, and then it keeps going further and further out. And the transport for these locations are usually different. And then zone 1 is the most expensive because that's central London, that's the seat of government. So definitely everything will be so expensive. But you need to ask yourself, how much more am I willing to pay for transport? Because I realized, I don't know whether I'm imagining, but I felt like the transport difference was not that much if you're traveling within London with an Oyster card, because there's a card you need to buy that you'll be tapping for your transport unless you're using your debit card. So I realized some places were really far, and you find maybe the commute would cost £4.55, £4.59, and then you find you're closer in but you're paying £3.99 or something like that. I know eventually the costs will add up at some point, but here in London they have this thing called capping, whereby, how does it work? Whereby if you're traveling using the same card between, I think 4 a.m. like 4 a.m. today and 4 a.m. tomorrow, 24 hours, you won't be charged beyond a certain point. So if you've already spent, let me just give an example. If you've already spent £10 traveling between today at 4 a.m. and tomorrow at 4 a.m., then you will not be charged more than that. So essentially, you'll be like traveling for free for some of your rides. So you need to think about that. That's why I felt the transport, if as long as I was within London, should not necessarily be a factor whereby I'm saying, oh, but here I'm going to pay £2 and here I'm going to pay £4. It does add up at some point, but I felt that because there's going to be a capping at some point, it won't affect me so much. So I really should focus more on the space. You also need to be aware that there are places where you'll find it has been advertised online, but once you get to the viewing, they'll tell you there are extra costs. So they'll tell you, okay, maybe online you saw it's £500, and then you get the property and they say you have to pay 100 for tax, council tax, then you have to pay £50 for electricity, then you have to pay £40 for Wi-Fi, and then you have to pay I don't know what, random things, and then you find at the end of the day you're paying like £900 when initially you thought you were going to pay £500 for your place. So always ask the agent or the landlord whether all bills are included. By all bills, I mean all bills including council tax, so that you know this month I'm paying rent and all bills inclusive for this space that I am staying, and I'm going to be spending £500 or £900, so that you put it in your budget and you know this is the cost. That is what it will cost you, so that you're not surprised at some point, oh, but you needed to pay this and you needed to pay that. The other thing I was told that you need to be careful when you choose a place, especially that excludes electricity, because I noticed there are places where you'll find it's very affordable, you can manage with the rent, but then it excludes electricity. So you need to ask yourself, why is it that electricity is excluded? So if the building has central heating, means that there is a gas system that's heating the water. It means the water is always hot. So when you're going to shower, you don't need to use electricity to heat the water. Because when you're heating your water, either to shower or because it's very cold, you might use it to wash your utensils, the electricity bill shoots up, and it's always shooting up. It's not stable. So ask yourself, if they tell you it excludes electricity, ask the agent, how is the water in this building heated? That way you'll know whether you're willing to pay an extra £30 to £50 for heating, because if you're one person, I'm told you won't spend more than £50 a month for if it's just one person in a very tiny room. That's something you need to think about. So always ask. I know I have said so many things in this video. This is what house hunting in London has taught me, and I am almost 100% sure that there are things that I have forgotten to mention that I have learned while house hunting. So if you have any questions, especially if you're a young person coming from my context, you're from Africa, you're coming here as a student, maybe you're coming to work or whatever it is you're coming to do, you're looking for a place that I would call accommodation in London, and you really don't know where to start. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram, Cynthia Nafula Nyongesa, still my names. You can find me on LinkedIn. You'll still see my name and my profile. I'll leave the links in the description bar. Just reach out and ask any questions, especially if you're coming from my context, because there's so much I've learned, and I've really just learned because I have had to take the opportunity to go house hunting. I wouldn't say I know everything, but I know you're in a new country, you're probably scared, maybe you feel kind of shy asking people about spaces, especially if you don't have a lot of money. You feel maybe I'm going to be judged because of the amount of money that I have. But what I've learned is that if you don't ask, nobody will know that you have a problem, or nobody will know that you don't know something, and you're more likely to find yourself in problems if you don't ask questions. So just ask people, ask your peers, ask people who've maybe been born, grown up, or lived in London or the UK for a long time. They'll tell you about dynamics, like the difference between heating with gas and heating with electricity, or the difference between council tax and housing, something like that. Yeah. So just ask questions, Ask. There are many things you wouldn't know if you don't ask, so just be okay asking. As I conclude this video, where would you get spaces to rent? Check Zoopla. That's the app that I use most commonly, that was recommended. Check Zoopla. The reason why I liked Zoopla is because I was able to filter different options, check sharings, check non-sharings, all that. Filter. Zoopla is good with filters. Rightmove is also good. It has a lot of properties. I felt like it had more properties compared to Zoopla, but the filtering options were not so great compared to Zoopla. Then you can also check SpareRoom. This one is mostly common for people who are looking for a spare room, as it says, a spare room somewhere to go and board. Check that as well. I have been told to check Facebook groups as well, but you just have to be careful. You're more likely to find scammers on Facebook compared to if you're using credited apps. So check Facebook, ask your friends, ask different people for options, ask about neighborhoods. The other thing I forgot to ask, as you're looking for a place to rent or a place to stay, you don't know neighborhoods in London. Sometimes you're wondering, now where do I start searching from, because London is big. So the trick I would use is, whenever I was on the train, I would take like a picture of the train map and just take that little picture there, and then it shows you the neighborhoods and where the train is going to stop. So then as I search for houses, I see, okay, there's a station called Kilburn, for example, and then I check houses around Kilburn. That's what I would do. The other way is just Google train lines in London, and then it will show you all the train lines in London, where they stop, where they live, and all that, and then use that as a guide to check for locations, because you don't know, you're in London, but London is big. So where do you start searching? Where in London? Is it east? Is it west? Is it north? Is it south? You really don't know. That's a way of you to get to know spaces to check, and then do a lot of viewings as you're looking for a space. Yeah, well, thank you so much for watching this very long video. I do really wish you all the best, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.